Hello everyone and welcome to Beamish Bookworms. We shall continue reading the classic Frankenstein. Chapter 12, The Tale of the Monster. If you can recollect, when I came to life, I opened my eyes and was no different than an infant who comes into the world without any perceptions. Even though I was just born, my body was not of a newborn baby. I was an adult physically, who could use his senses. All this was so new for me, and obviously I was scared. You were the first person I saw after I came into this world. So I came to you for help, like a child to his parent. I was disheartened to see you run away from me, deserting me, leaving me to fight with an unknown world, all alone. I didn't know where to go and what to do. After you left me, I wrapped your cloak around my body, as I felt the cold. The only way I saw was to go out of your house. And I went away from you and our home into the forest outside Ingolstadt. I cried for some days, thinking of my miserable situation and considering myself a wretch. As I kept walking on and on, I was tired and wanted to rest. I slept under a tree, on the cool yet damp earth of the forest, near the stream. I don't know for how many hours I slept, but after I woke up, I was hungry and thirsty. The difficulties related to human necessities had begun. For food, I ate some berries and fruit that I found in the forest, and to quench my thirst, I relied on the water from the brook. A month passed by in the forest. These woods taught me a lot of valuable things. As I looked at the sun rising and setting, the moon shining in the night, and the difference between the two lights that illuminated the sky at two different times. Nature has a tremendous power, and I recognized it when I watched birds flying over me, making sweet and melodious sounds. I attempted imitating those sounds, but wasn't successful. Whenever I made an effort to produce sounds out of my mouth, it was cacophonic, unlike the bird's melody. I was desolate and dejected at my failure to do so. I decided to explore the woods. One day I saw something glowing at a distance. When I went near it, it felt warm and comforting. Afterwards, I came to know that it was fire. But at that moment, I put my hand to lift the burning logs and uttered a cry. I had burnt my hand, and I became aware that something that can provide comfort can also hurt. After the fire went out, I carefully examined what made fire. It was only the small sticks from the trees and the air that made fire possible. I tried to put berries and fruits in the fire, but they tasted bad. And when I cooked nuts, they tasted even better than before. So I learned some basics of what could be cooked with fire. I stayed in the woods for some days, but after some time, it became difficult for me to find food. So I left the woods to discover another terrain where one could not put one's feet on the ground for a long time, as it hurt due to the white sheet of ice beneath. I wandered in a similar manner for 3 or 4 days, when suddenly one morning I came across a hut. Hungry and tired, I opened the door to find an old man preparing his food. The moment he saw me, he stood there in horror and ran out of the hut shrieking, as if I had come to hurt him. I had no such intentions. I looked at the food with hungry eyes and ate my fill, and arranged the straw on the ground for some sleep. It was noon when I woke up and thought of proceeding with my wandering. I took along some food from the old man's hut to eat later. The walk seemed endless, but at last I reached a village. I wondered at the nicely constructed houses. Every house in the village had a vegetable garden, and it seemed to me that here I would never run out of food. I happily entered one of the houses to scare the people sitting there. The women fainted after seeing me, and the children screamed and ran away from me. Everyone in the village started gathering around me, looking at me with fear and disgust. The villagers saw me as a threat, and in no time they started chasing me with sticks, rocks, and iron tools. I escaped with my life and entered the open fields. After traveling for I don't know how many hours, I saw a wooden shed attached to a cottage. I used to enter the houses, scare people, and get chased. But this time, I had lost the courage to do so. The bad memories of the village incident came back to me, and I refrained from opening the door of this cottage. The shed was cozy, yet a small place for me, as I could barely sit there, and it was impossible to stand. Yet, it felt as if I had found my own home, a place I could come back to without running the risk of frightening people. The place would provide me shelter from snow and rain, and I could sleep peacefully. As I looked around, I came across a big crack which led into the cottage. I was very hungry, and therefore went into the cottage through the crack to find bread and a cup for drinking water. I continued living in the shed, and after a few days, I got to know that 3 people used to live in that cottage. The DeLacy family had a blind and aged father, his daughter Agatha, and son Felix. It was obvious that they were poor. Agatha and Felix often went out of their home and worked hard to get food for their helpless father, even if they themselves were starving. They had a small vegetable garden and a cow which didn't produce enough milk, and because of the scarcity of food, they could never eat their fill. The family, according to me, was a perfect one, as each loved and cared for the other selflessly, and this touched me. I was moved and decided not to steal their food, but would help them to find more by traveling in the forest at night and getting berries, nuts, and fruits, and whatever else I could find for them. I even used to go out at night to help the family by cutting wood and placing it at their doorstep to give them a pleasant surprise every morning. The family was delighted with the miraculous help they were receiving. They used the wood to light a fire in their cottage and cook food and enjoy its warmth at the same time. At night, they lit a candle and would read to their blind father. They read from books, as they called it, which were made of things like meaning and words. I wondered at the ease with which they could communicate with each other. Gradually, I got to know that language had the power of communication and was used to express what one feels. Fascinated by language, I practiced imitating how they spoke, what sounds they made, how they used the tongue and the mouth. I had made up my mind to learn the human art of speaking and make myself understandable to others. And finally, after several months of practice, I learned how to talk. I wanted to go to them and introduce myself and speak of what I felt, hoping that they would ignore my ugly form. I found out that I was an eyesore as I saw my reflection in the water. I craved to cover my visual hideousness through my persuasive power of speech. Life went on like this, but one fine morning came a woman riding on a horse to meet Felix. I discovered from their talks that her name was Safi. She didn't speak in the same way as Agatha and Felix did, and also belonged to a country known as Turkey. I was confused about her motive of coming, and at last knew that she was Felix's fiancée and had come to marry Felix. The weeks after her coming to the house were utilized in helping her learn the language of the DeLacys. As they taught Safi, I grabbed the opportunity, paid attention, and started learning their language. Luckily, one day while walking through the forest, I stumbled upon a suitcase which contained some books and clothes. Along with Safi, I used the books to read, speak, and rehearse. I led this simple and pleasurable life during the following winter and spring. And it was only due to this loving family that I had begun to see myself as a part of their family, as I felt close to them and loved them very much. I was grateful to them for making me learn their language. I was even happier to see my progress at being able to read and speak, quite like they did. Sometimes, when I used to feel very lonely, I thought, how does it matter if I know how to speak and read? Is there anyone whom I could speak to? What is the use of this power when I can't even share and express what I truly feel? Will people accept me, overlooking my loathsome appearance? Will anyone ever look at me with the kind of love that I have seen in the eyes of Safi and Felix? Will I ever have a family? Or even a friend? What can I expect from others when my own creator hates me? When I had left your place, I took along your cloak to protect me from cold. But in the pocket of that cloak, I found your diary. The diary was nonsensical to me till the time I didn't know how to read. But as I learned the art of language, it started making sense to me. I tried reading your notebook, and the more I read it, my bitterness for you kept on increasing. I read your feelings and thoughts while you were still in the process of creating me, and also when you had created me. I was heartbroken to read your thoughts about me. My creator despised me for the ugliness he himself had created. I wanted to ask you, why did you bring me to life? And even if you did, why did you make me so ugly? I am your creature, yet I hate you for creating and then abandoning me. I tried to forget your injustice and placed my hope in the affectionate Lacey family. I was convinced that they would accept me, overlooking my ugliness. I knew that I would find a companion in them who would listen to my story and would give me shelter. But I had fear at the back of my mind. What if they didn't understand me or took me for an enemy? I wanted to gain their confidence and support, yet something kept pulling me away from confronting them. A year passed since I had started living in the shed, and I had made up my mind to confront them. I had thought of a perfect arrangement to make an entry into the house when the children were gone and their blind father was alone. Since he could not see, he would not be scared of my horrible self, but would focus on my story. And when I would have made him my friend, he would introduce me as a good person to his children, and they too would finally consider me a friend. I found my chance when the children had gone to the village fair. I thought it was the perfect time to introduce myself to the old man. I gathered courage and knocked at the door. The old man asked me to come inside and asked who I was. I informed him that I was a traveler, tired and hungry, looking for a place to spend the night. He welcomed me and offered me food. I was very happy with his hospitality, and he talked to me about many things. We also discussed the need for friends in our life. I drew a breath of relief, since I was sure of becoming his friend. He would perhaps understand my emotions. Just as I was holding his hand, delighted to spend some hours in his company, the door opened. I saw Felix, Agatha and Safi at the door, staring at me in horror. Agatha fainted. Safi ran away and Felix attacked me with all the force he could and beat me with sticks as I fell on the ground. I could have killed him if I wanted to, but I didn't harm him in any way. Full of misery and gloom, I rushed out of the cottage. I walked and kept walking until it was dark, and I reached the woods. I cried, for I was alone once again, with no one to talk to and no one to call a friend. Thinking about my deplorable state, an uncontrollable rage came over me. I could think of nothing but revenge. I desperately wanted to avenge the atrocities I bore because of you, Victor Frankenstein. Hence I stood against you, against the people and this world. Chapter 13. The Confession. I knew what I had to do next. I had to find you. From your diary, I came to know that you lived in Geneva. Felix's geography lessons to say he helped me in finding you. I set out, heading in the southwest direction. While I was traveling towards your home, nothing other than hate for you was on my mind. I cursed you every moment for my existence, for the scorn I suffered every time I met a human. I lamented my state and decided that it was time for you and the world to pay the price. I could think of nothing but revenge. As it was not possible for me to wander during the day, I only moved out at night in the cold. It snowed everywhere and it became very difficult for me to walk on the icy ground. But still, I continued my journey, determined to reach you. As I came nearer to my destination, my anger and my hate for you multiplied. All winter I traveled on foot, avoiding the areas which humans inhabited and sleeping in the open fields, as people hardly came there. Then spring came and the sun came out, making it easy for me to travel. I relished the warmth of the sun and finally reached the Swiss border. There, I traveled in the daytime, hiding carefully and avoiding paths which humans walked on. I made my own path to pass through the woods without bumping into any human being. Then, as I was crossing a river one day, I heard some voices. I realized that some humans were around and hid behind a tree. I saw a girl laughing and running from someone. Suddenly, she lost control and slipped, falling into the river. Something came over me and I jumped in the river to save her. The current of the water was very strong and the girl was pulled out towards the rapids. Even I had to exert myself to save her. Finally, after much struggle, I pulled her out of the river. I brought her to the shore and back to consciousness. While I was trying to revive her, her father came, snatched her away from me and went back to the forest. I didn't understand what made him do this, and I went behind him. I think my following him irritated the man. He took out his gun and fired several shots at me. It took me a few minutes to realize that these small bullets could do a great deal of harm. I cried out in pain, with blood oozing out of my wounds. I said to myself, is this the way to thank someone for rescuing his daughter from drowning? I just wanted to save her. Where did I go wrong? Again, I was full of rage for every human alive. I took care of myself in the forest, cleaning my wounds and waiting for them to heal. When I recovered, I resumed my search for you. Only revenge was on my mind. It was after 2 months of traveling that I reached the forest outside Geneva. One evening, when I was sitting under a tree trying to think about how to reach you, I saw an innocent and beautiful child coming towards me. My heart filled with hope as I thought that he was only a child, unable to recognize what's beautiful and what's ugly. Being so lonely, I just wanted a friend and thought that the child would be my companion. I held out my hand and reached for him. As I held him in front of me, the boy behaved like a grown-up. He closed his eyes with his hands and started shouting. I assured him that I won't hurt him, but he didn't listen to me and began insulting me and screaming, "Ugly monster, go away, don't come near me. You don't know my father, Alphonse Frankenstein. If he comes to know that you're not letting me go, he will call the police and they will put you away in prison." It dawned on me that he was from the family of my creator. And here was the perfect chance to take revenge for the torments I had to bear. I was in pain for all this time, and now it was your turn to taste your own medicine. Aware of what my action could do, how much it would hurt you, I went ahead and grabbed the child by the neck to silence him. He was silenced forever. He lay in front of me, dead. And I was happy to have killed him as he was from the family of my enemy. After I killed the child, I looked at him and found a locket around his neck. The locket had a picture of a beautiful lady, and I felt how such beauty was a contrast to my wickedness. This only made me hate you more. After the murder, I held on to the locket and walked on to Geneva. While traveling, I came across a barn, and there I found a woman sleeping. afraid that she would wake up and see me, and she would later identify me as the boy's killer. I slowly went near her. I dropped the locket into her pocket. It wasn't that I had a grudge against her, but I just remembered how terribly mankind had treated me. This action of mine was just to make mankind suffer through her. When this locket would be discovered in her pocket, she would be condemned as the one who murdered the boy. I was curious to know what happened after, and thus, hidden from sight, I waited for the boy's dead body to be found. I went into the city after the others and got to know that the woman was accused of the murder and arrested. I roamed in Geneva and I waited for you. I knew you would come running after hearing of this death. And I was right. You came. I wanted to talk to you, confront you face to face. And here we are, just as I had wanted. Okay, let's stop here. The story has taken a very, very disturbing turn. The monster is revealed to be more human than monster. It is truly heartbreaking to hear his story. To be abhorred and shunned in this way? No wonder he was filled with bitterness and thirsted for revenge. He killed William. It has been proven now. But killing him and causing Justine's execution, was that justified? How can we forgive him for that, despite our feeling of immense pity for him? Let's continue next time and see where this tale goes. Now for the difficult words. Grab a pen. Wretch, quench, cacophonic, desolate, terrain, shrieking, refrained, miraculous, eyesore, craved, persuasive, tumbled, overlooking, loathsome, despised, deplorable, atrocities, lamented, relished, and condemned. That's all from Beamish Bookworms. Till next time, happy reading, everyone. If you enjoyed listening to this story, please do like and subscribe to Beamish Bookworms. Please press the bell icon to get notified when a new story comes out. Meanwhile, happy reading, everyone.